On January 6, 2021, our nation's capital was overrun by a mob trying to interrupt the certification of the 2020 presidential election. Just 4 years later, a points change was announced at Canadian Highlander with 8 changes. White Plume Adventurer, Psychic Frog, Minx-Kimbu Timeless Heroes, Urza Saga, and Reanimate all went to 1, Sol Ring went from 4 to 3, and Spellseeker and Survival of the Fittest went from 1 to 0. Which decks gained big on these points changes, and which decks kinda got the short end of the stick? Today, let's go over the winners and losers of the January 2025 points update. Starting off with our honorable mention on our winners, which is 1 and 2 color aggro. Sol Ring going from 4 to 3 is a big boon for these decks, and yes, while some of them did eat a point or two depending on what colors they're in, archetypes that presented difficult play patterns for them gained more points than they did. In general, low color aggro is going to get a little better with this points change. Now, how much better they're gonna get still remains to be seen. It's an honorable mention though, because there is one low color aggro deck that wins out over them all. A big winner from this points update is Gruul Monsters. Now, yes, Minx-Kimbu did get pointed, but the downpointing of Sol Ring combined with the fact that the deck doesn't really run any other pointed cards from this update means that it's gotten a big boon going forward with its fast mana combinations. This doesn't mean that Gruul Monsters is suddenly tier 0, the deck still suffers from the too big for too little problem that we're seeing with a lot of creatures, and the deck can still just get stonewalled by certain defensive creatures at times. Overall, I think Gruul Monsters gained a lot from this points update, but it's still gonna run into some challenges in the meta, and notably, one of the other winners from this update. Jeskai Control is frequently referred to as the boogeyman of Canadian Highlander. Well, those people will be excited to know that Jeskai Control was mostly unaffected by these points changes. But why? Well, let's start with the bad news. Jeskai Control just got White Plume Adventure from 0 to 1, and this isn't a nothing hit for them. White Plume Adventure was one of their better ways to close out games, block, create a value engine, and while some Jeskai lists are on a time-locked Spellseeker spread, which just lost a point from Spellseeker so it could put White Plume Adventure back in, this point spread for Jeskai is still pretty experimental and getting tinkered with, so most players are still opting for the tighter Ancestral Recall spread. While the points update did not leave it unscathed, expect to continue seeing the red, white, and blue deck fly its flag over the format. Man, I feel bad for anybody in the Esper mid-range sphere. It's not a particularly popular archetype to brew in, but for the people that are in it, it must just suck. I can imagine somebody in the hospital being like, "Oh, sir, you've woken up from a coma for 2 months," and he's just like, "Oh boy, I can't wait to go to my local and play my favorite Canadian Highlander deck, Esper mid-range." An unfortunate victim of catching just a billion strays from this update. White Plume Adventure to 1, Psychic Frog to 1, Reanimate to 1. You have Spellseeker to 0 if you want to run that, I guess. All in all, it's just really funny to see Esper midrange get absolutely blasted on this update. Reanimator had a pretty direct hit on the points update. They put Reanimate to 1. Now, while this does hit other decks that are trying to use Reanimate as more of a powerful value piece, Reanimator as an archetype is built around cards like this. And this is combined with the pointing of Psychic Frog, which was a powerful backup plan, but also a powerful enabler for the deck, just able to dig it out of unwinnable situations. Despite these two hits, Reanimator isn't down and out, not even close. The deck was starting to reach to play cards like Imperial Seal and Gifts Ungiven just to flesh out its points, and I'm sure a lot of variants aren't going to be losing too much sleep swapping those two cards out for Psychic Frog and Reanimate. So while you'd think, and at first glance, Reanimator looks like a big loser archetype, expect this archetype to bounce back and recover very quickly. Alright, everyone tuning into this video knew this one was coming. Jesus Christ. Minx-Kimbu, Psychic Frog, Reanimate, all hit. 2 of those being value engines and strong win cons, and the other just being a very powerful tool against opposing decks and to help dig them out of situations if their key creature gets removed. Ugh. rough. And yeah, Jeskai got one of its powerful threats that was also a value engine pointed, but the difference between Czech and Jeskai is that Czech struggles a lot more to retool and replace those cards in the control variant. See, Czech has a couple of different ways to play it. The most common two are Czech control and Czech midrange, and while I do think these hits are going to really hurt the Czech control recall spread, the Czech midrange mock spread is probably going to become the more de facto version of Czech going forward with this point update. So, while the recall spread may be on the down low, expect the Mox mid-range version of Czech to appear at your next tournament. And those are my thoughts on the winners and losers of the January 2025 Canadian Highlander points update. Are you happy about it, sad about it, angry, disappointed, got thoughts on things that maybe should have been pointed but weren't? Let me know in the comments down below. And until next time, thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.